What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Scott and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I am super pumped to bring you a brand spanking new Fallout 4 build. We know a lot of you have been begging us to get back into Fallout builds, so today we're excited to share the mechanic. Now before we get into this beast of a character, I want to very quickly mention that this video has been sponsored by Pixonic for their mobile game War Robots. This is very exciting and helpful for us, and we've got a cool presentation at the end of the video showing it off, but for now, we've got the build. The mechanic is a master of robotics, but a tough upbringing amongst the wrong sort of people caused him to apply his excellence in the criminal underworld of Boston's harsh streets. The only thing the mechanic loves more than creating the ultimate mechanized war machines is being dominant and feeling the thrill of danger as he fights against his foes, with adrenaline pumping through his veins. The mechanic's pre-war handyman skills and questionable morals molded him for survival in the post-apocalyptic wastes. Not much was different in his eyes, except maybe for the mutated beasts lurking around every corner, but there's nothing he can't handle. When the mechanic wanders into a fight, he's always tailed by a deadly metal companion. Robots crafted specifically to be the most devastatingly powerful and aesthetically imposing the Commonwealth has ever seen. Combined with his ability behind the barrel of an automatic rifle, the mechanic's targets don't stand a chance. Before we get into the build, be sure to check out the description where you can find timestamps to help you navigate throughout the video. But with that said, let's get right into it. The mechanic lived a standard lower-class life in the outskirts of Boston. His parents wanted the best for him, and he showed signs of real academic potential, but this was constantly jeopardized by the rough neighborhood they were forced to reside in. Like most children, the mechanic enjoyed spending his time outside under the sun. He also enjoyed collecting junk to tinker with and build things. He got along well enough with the other children, but they didn't understand his fascination with tinkering. The other boys would knock the junk out of his hands, beckoning him to join them as they vandalized the homes of belligerent old folk who hadn't returned to their lost baseballs in days past. The mechanic found time for both, enjoying the adrenaline rush of hurling stones at windows while also preserving time for his own pragmatic pastimes. Throughout his schooling life, the mechanic excelled, but sitting in a stiff classroom chair until his ass went numb just failed to maintain his attention, so at the age of 17 he turned his back on formal education and followed a hands-on career at a nearby auto repair garage. One of his workmates, Vaughn, was quick to take the mechanic under his wing. Vaughn had a look about him that guaranteed he'd grown up on the streets, and his Bostonian accent was so strong it looked painful. The same could be said of Vaughn's friends, who he soon introduced the mechanic to. Their friendship grew, and eventually the mechanic was smoking and drinking with them. Somehow Vaughn had the expendable cash a mechanic wouldn't see in a lifetime, and the mechanic began to notice Vaughn carrying chems in his tool belt. It turned out that Vaughn and his friends were more than just chem dealers. They were successful armed robbers, racketeers, and all-round crooks. He almost considered turning a blind eye and cutting ties with them, but the call of excitement and the emptiness in his wallet overcame him. Before long, the mechanic was plunging into the deep end of the underworld, which waited to engulf him. His exceptional handiwork made business boom for Vaughn's gang. The mechanic used his skills to rewire old robots from the repair shop as well as newer ones Vaughn had stolen. And after he was done with them, they were programmed to infiltrate locked doors and terminals, and if worst came to worst, the cops would be arresting a bucket of bolts while they ran free. Heading up the tech aspect of the gang was all well and good, but it didn't quite fulfill the mechanic's desire for thrill and the hit of power to his veins. So the mechanic donned a mask for the group's next robbery. He'd never held a gun before, but as he gripped the 10mm pistol, capable of taking a life with one squeeze of the trigger, he came alive with anticipation. The job was going to be a small armed robbery. Get in and get out. One particular jewelry shop on the outskirts of Boston's business district opened earlier than most. The mechanic figured the place liked to cash in on the impulsive desires of the early birds. Either way, the place was in for a surprise this morning. Through the tinted windows of the getaway car, the mechanic surveyed the store. The streets were quiet, and aside from a catwalk leading to the roof of the multi-story building, there was nothing noteworthy about the place. He checked his pocket one last time. Inside were the zip ties he would use to restrain the manager and the employees while Vaughn and the others grabbed the loot. He gave a nod and the others returned it. And then they burst out of the car, moving into the store with haste. A scream bellowed from the cashier as she raised her hands in surrender. The mechanic flung himself over the counter and pressed her firmly against the ground, tying her wrists and ankles while the others pointed their guns at the two unfortunate shoppers. Once they were all prone and zip-tied, the mechanic scanned the room for the manager. He caught a glimpse of a suited man dashing for the back office to the adjacent room. "Stop!" the mechanic exclaimed. He ran for the door and spotted the manager ascending the staircase. He cornered the manager on the top floor and commanded him to get on the ground before tying his wrists and ankles. From the bottom floor, he could hear the others making their escape to the car as sirens approached. The mechanic ran to the window and saw 2 police officers entering downstairs. "Shit," he said. The getaway car was just around the corner, so far unseen by the 2 cops. There was only one way down, so the mechanic wrenched open the stiff window and climbed onto the catwalk. It didn't go down to the ground floor, instead stopping on the 3rd. He'd have to jump. He heard a voice from the room he'd just left. No time, he vaulted over the railing and landed with a harsh thud. Whatever damage the pavement did to his legs was thankfully countered by the adrenaline surging through his body. He sprinted to the car, which was already beginning to move, and jumped in an open back door. As they pulled in the back of the repair shop, the mechanic was relieved to have made it out, but his knee throbbed with pain every time he put weight on his leg. The mechanic waited a few days for the news of the robbery to blow over before seeking medical attention. Whether out of paranoia or prudence, he wasn't sure, but he didn't want anyone making connections. His nurse was young and beautiful, free from the corrupting influence of Boston's rough surrounding streets, and the mechanic found that intoxicating. They hit it off, and the mechanic almost felt bad for blatantly lying about the events leading to his injury, but fortunately he wasn't an idiot. After his recovery, the mechanic looked for an escape from his life in Boston's cruel underbelly, and he found this respite in the form of the US Armed Forces. He enlisted and was placed in the robotics division, where he served a full term before returning, rehabilitated from his criminal past. For the most part, at least. His first action upon returning to Boston was to seek out that nurse. His next was to leave the mean streets, choosing a quiet life of the suburbs instead. The mechanic saw no reason to ever revert to his former life, despite the occasional urge for that unrivaled adrenaline rush. But then the bombs dropped and everything changed. Once the initial shock of the occurrences inside Vault 111 passed, the mechanic will be motivated to find Sean. His wife and son changed his life, and searching for his son would be the only thing preventing him from turning back to his old ways. However, the harsh reality of the wasteland he once called home is overbearing, and in order to survive, the gangland criminal mindset needs to be manifested. The mechanic will let that happen willingly, seeking power and dominance above all else. Law enforcement is non-existent now, only the strong survive, and with his criminal past, the mechanic believes himself to be strong both physically and mentally. He will be willing to exploit others if it makes his life better. He will often ask for more money when helping others, and while he isn't evil, he won't be doing any favors for folks out of the kindness of his heart. With self-preservation and dominance as the new priority, he also won't tolerate disrespect. Anyone stupid enough to insult the mechanic will likely find themselves with a fist lodged in their teeth. In terms of factions, despite their love for technology and engineering, the goals and the technology of the Institute seem far too creepy for the mechanic. Something about the synths makes the mechanic's skin crawl. When he works with robots, they have their unique functions. They were never designed to be indistinguishable from their creator. The Brotherhood of Steel, on the other hand, have a reverence for pre-war technology that the mechanic can totally relate to, and whether it be designing new technology or fixing old or broken machines, the mechanic would feel a sense of purpose in their ranks. On top of that, the Brotherhood feels very much like a gang to the mechanic. They may not be criminals, but they share the same value of companionship and taking care of your own. Let's also not forget their magnificent feats in the form of the Pridwin and the Vertibirds. The mechanic would have only dreamed of working on vehicles like those in his past life. While he admires the technology used in power armor, he will not wear it himself unless a mission specifically warrants him to. His days on the streets gave him a desire for the visceral thrill of being in action and having skin in the game. It seems too easy and disconnected to fight from within a walking tank. Besides, he already has a walking tank helping him, one of his own robot creations. After discovering Nuka World and the Raider clans, the mechanic will set his sights a little higher, striving to take control of the Commonwealth for himself, rather than simply following orders from higher-ups like Elder Maxon. The Raider influence will lead him to take a darker turn, as a chance to dictate his own fate is hard to pass up. He finally gets to be the leader, something that is not possible within the Brotherhood. He will side with the Disciples and the Operators to take over the Commonwealth quickly and aggressively. He has the physical appearance similar to a Disciple with the intelligence of an Operator, so he is perfect to work with both groups. The pack are obviously far too wild and disorganized for his tastes. The mechanic's start game special stats will be 3 strength, 1 perception, 10 endurance, 1 charisma, 10 intelligence, 2 agility, and 1 luck. In order to access the Scrounger perk early on, use the special book in Sean's room to increase your luck to 2. As you could probably gather from the backstory, intelligence is the mechanic's area of expertise, but he will also have the endurance to endure almost any of the hardships that the wasteland throws at him. With all that in mind, these are the mechanic's essential perks. I'll run through all of them, highlighting the priority perks along the way. The priority perks are the ones we consider to be more significant to the mechanic's playstyle and abilities, so prioritizing these where possible will make for the best experience. From the strength stat line, the priority perk will be Armorer. The name of this build should be explanation enough for why that is. The mechanic knows all there is to know about designing and maintaining machines, and his knowledge of cars and robots extends to the ability to create the most effective armor. With this perk fully optimized, you can access all 4 ranks of armor mods. The other necessary perks from the strength stat line are Blacksmith for making melee robots, a +1 strength stat investment, and Heavy Gunner. In order to get Heavy Gunner, you'll need the strength point investment as well as the strength bobblehead. Next up, we have Intelligence. Despite leaving school at the first opportunity, the mechanic applied his talents well in areas that intrigued him. He may not know the fundamentals of algebra or how to masterfully interpret Shakespeare, but the mechanic could turn a pile of scrap into a walking, talking robot. From the Intelligence skill line, we have 3 priority perks. The first is Gun Nut. Like Armorer, taking all ranks of Gun Nut opens the door to all gun mods. The second is Science, which does the same thing for high-tech mods, and the last is Robotics Expert. Maximizing this perk allows the mechanic to hack robots, giving him the opportunity to shut them down, self-destruct them, incite them to attack, or even give them specific commands. With these priority perks, nothing will stop you from creating the best robots Fallout 4 has to offer. Our other intelligence perks are 2 ranks of Medic for healing with Stimpaks and Radaway, 3 ranks of Hacker to ensure you can access all terminals in your adventures, and then Scrapper to help you stock up on all the useful tidbits needed to tinker with arms, armor, and machines. From Agility, we will be taking 1 perk, and that perk's a priority perk. As we mentioned briefly before, the mechanic fights on the front lines with his robots. As a result, he needs to be proficient with a gun in his hands. Taking all ranks of Commando will make automatic weapons twice as deadly. It'll also improve hipfire accuracy and increase the chance to stagger opponents. Finally, we have the Luck stat line. The priority perk in this line is Scrounger, and that will be open for perk point investment as soon as you make it to Sanctuary and find the special book. With this perk, you'll find considerably more ammo in containers, and there's even a slim chance you'll replenish ammo when you fire the last round of your magazine. Other than Scrounger, Fortune Finder will help you acquire caps, and Bloody Mess will slightly improve your damage output while making each kill that little bit more fun and gory. You can also sell ammo you don't use, and alongside Cap Collector, you'll be able to make money to buy extra junk for building purposes despite having low charisma. By the end of the build, your special stats will be 5 strength, 2 perception, 11 endurance, 2 charisma, 11 intelligence, 3 agility, and 3 luck. As for gear, early on you can use whatever raider armor you happen to find in your travels, but with the Automatron DLC you should find robot armor to replace it very quickly. Use the heavy variant when you do. Farming the Rust Devil locations later in the game will massively help in acquiring all the pieces. To top it off, wearing the Sentrybot helmet makes for a great aesthetic, totally befitting the mechanic's style. Dressed in this, you'll look robotic and menacing. Make sure you upgrade it all as much as possible to make sure it is sturdy and meets your personal needs. Underneath all of this, the torn shirt and jeans is what you'll wear. And this you can get from the Disciples. But until that, you can get road leathers and they will work just fine. In terms of weapons, any automatic rifle, which will benefit from the Commando perk, will be plenty powerful early on. You can upgrade to an assault rifle whenever possible, but this gun also fits the robot heavy armor. Once you hit Nuka World though, you're all sorted. Grab a handmade rifle and use whatever paints and legendary variants you like the most. The mechanic also uses big guns, meaning a flamer is viable, but we suggest sticking with the Ashmaker, which has an unrivaled fire rate with the accelerated barrel mod and, like its name suggests, burns its victims to a sooty crisp. The only drawback is that it burns through ammo fast, but that's why you have the handmade rifle and an assault rifle if you wish to keep it. The mechanic uses a variety of robots as his companions. We recommend making them all look as gnarly, scary, and rusty as physically possible. The kind of aesthetic that makes you want to take a tetanus shot simply from looking at them. Nothing will be more intimidating to your enemies on the battlefield. I'm talking big skulls, spikes, and dark rusty colors. We like to make 2 main robots. One is an Assaultron with blades for a mostly melee fighting style supplemented by the range of its laser beam attack, and the second is a jacked sentry bot with an arsenal of artillery in its back pocket for when you're in open spaces and want to do catastrophic damage. Versatility and variety are the keys when making robots. Making an army of sentry bots is all well and good until you try to fit one of them through a door. As for settlements, the mechanic will focus on taking over all of them with the Nuka World gangs. He takes a slightly more forceful approach to settlements rather than running around for Preston Garvey. Be dominant and take all the territory you can. And that wraps up the mechanic build for Fallout 4. If you liked the video, please do hit the like button and subscribe for more FudgeMuppet Fallout 4 builds. Now let's take a look at War Robots, the very addictive mobile game belonging to S.P.E.C.I.A.L, the sponsor of this video. If you can't get enough of building robots and having them fight alongside you, then this mobile game is the perfect way to indulge yourself when you're out and about away from your PC or console. War Robots involves real-time PvP battles with teams of 6 warring it out on a variety of unique maps, with machine guns blazing and missiles flying as you fight to destroy the other team and capture territory. I gotta say, it's a really addictive game and a ton of fun for anyone who enjoys mobile gaming, especially if you love yourself some Michael Bay-esque robot action. It's easy to get the hang of it and it feels very rewarding, both when you get better gear and also when you blow an enemy robot to smithereens. The gameplay really is where this game stands out as a lot of fun. Whether you're using sniper-like cannons to take out enemies from afar, missiles to reach over buildings or around walls, or miniguns to shred metal foes apart at point blank, it's hard not to have a good time. I also like how there's quite an extensive amount of beast-looking robots to acquire as you level up, with some very cool paint designs and obviously a bunch of weapons to unlock, upgrade and equip. Personally, I love the homing missiles and the spiral arms, which you can get basically straight away. You can also upgrade your robot to make it faster and tougher, and each robot has its own unique advantages and disadvantages, so test out a few to see what you like. So if you're looking for something new and love building robots in multiplayer games, then this is without a doubt worth the download. It won't cost you anything and the link can be found below in the description section of the video. And by clicking the link in the description, you will get 100 gold, 100,000 silver and 2 Punisher machine guns. Have fun on the battlefield.